Bam! Welcome back to the Paradox Podcast.
The Great Paradox Podcast.
It is the Great Paradox Podcast. You know what's funny? My wife, she always has to remind me of where to go. She's my GPS. I went to Mike Edwards' house. I've been there 50 times. I need the GPS every time. I'm geographically challenged. I even forget to put Great Paradox on the YouTube channel description sometimes.
And I hate GPS. I don't even like using it. So we're a little bit different that way.
Speaking of paradox, I don't think we've ever even told the audience what the Great Paradox is.
Well, I think it's time. This is episode 4, and I don't think we've even spent one segment of one episode talking about paradox.
And that was the original game plan, was to have this podcast be all about the Great Paradox. But Larry, what is the Great Paradox?
Well, we're going to get to that a little bit later. We've got...
It's going to tease me again.
The entire segment is devoted to that. But first of all, let's talk a little bit about something that's going on within our Flame Keepers.
Okay.
Monday nights.
Monday night was off the chain. Why don't you see? We started a new outreach on Monday nights, but Larry, I want to get your perspective because you came eyes fresh on the scene to serve, but you weren't there when we were planning and plotting and setting up. So you had zero expectations. What was your experience? What was Monday night? Because when you're starting something new, it's undefined. You don't even know what it is. So what was your take on it?
Well, we're called to feed the poor and offer clothes to those who are naked. And I felt like we were in Ogden, and there's a tremendous need, not for physical food, but for spiritual food. And I saw some people that we did feed, by the way. We had some pizza, and the food was good. The meatballs were awesome. But for the most part, what we were there for was to feed some souls. And from my eyes, you know, it started small, but all we need is one.
Yeah, so the first 10 minutes in the lead up, the music's going, we've got the setup, we got Jose on the bass, Mackenzie singing. The worship was awesome. I was enjoying the worship, but it hadn't started yet. It was 10 till 6, and I had that moment where I thought about all the effort that we put in to get the food ready, to bring the equipment. Bob met me at the church that morning, loaded chairs up into the truck, brought chairs to my house. Jack had to come pick up the chairs, bring them to the building. We had to set up all the sound, do sound checks. And you hit that point where you go, I hope somebody comes. We passed out 120 flyers, 120 apartments received flyers, inviting them for free food. And I had that moment where I said, what if not one person? Surely 5-6 people are going to come. And of course, we ended up having probably about 10 strangers that came in over the course of us being there, and about 8 or 9 of us sitting down for the Bible study at the end of worship. But at first it was like, oh no, what if no one comes? And then you and I went knocking on doors. Talk about that, because that's when things got fun.
Yeah, and characters emerge, right? We're going and knocking on doors. You don't know who's going to answer that door or what's behind that door. Number 1, you know, all these apartment numbers, and they had numbers on them, right? Door number 1, what's behind there? Well, one of the gentlemen that ended up showing up, he's like, well, thanks for the offer, guys, but I'm probably too intoxicated to show up.
He said, come in.
Yeah. So Scott, I didn't meet him face to face until he actually came. And, you know, he actually said he hadn't eaten in 4 days. So just being there with some food was probably a blessing to that guy. But the characters are what caught my attention.
So there we are, Larry. We're in the clubhouse. We're listening to great music. But the time hadn't come yet, and we needed to go knock on doors. So we go walking through, banging on those doors, you and I. We didn't know what to expect. We were just banging. We went through the hallway, bam, 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 banging 3, 4, 5 doors, seeing who would come to the door first.
Yeah.
And that guy says, come in.
Right.
We're going to erase his name. We'll have to erase his name from the thing. He says, come in. I open the door, and he's sitting there. And these were people who are in need of love and attention. And I didn't think he was going to come. He rejected the offer at first. So we moved on.
We had no expectation. He told us no, basically.
Yeah. Then we had Ivan, little Ivan, and his mom who didn't speak English. And Ivan was translating, and we ended up giving them a free pizza.
Yeah.
Planting seed. Then there was the young lady. We saw her walking around on her phone out there. She ends up coming in with her cat.
Yeah, that young lady. She was. She came in. She went back to her apartment and changed her clothes and came in.
Then you had the guy with the carpal tunnel surgery.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden we're in there, and these strangers, and then you had the guy who was some sort of worker, plumber, because he had his outfit on. He's in there eating pizza. I'm
he pretty much like took a break from work just to get some food, and he was gone.
But he got touched by the music and the worship and the presence. There was an anointing there. Okay, so we go banging on all these doors. Some of the people answer. We invite them. Some of them say no. Some of them end up coming. And then we ended up having a Bible study with about 9 of us. But, I thought about it, Larry. We haven't had 9 or 10 off the street, cold market, non-Christians come to 3 years worth of Flame Keeper meetings. I love being a Catholic, but one of our weaknesses is evangelizing the cold market. And last night was the beginning of an outreach to the cold market, to the non-Catholic, to reel them into the kingdom and then bring them back home.
And the hunger for that was obvious, and the need for that. These characters that we're talking about, beautiful people, but like the rest of us, damaged. And it was very exciting to be part of feeding my sheep, as Jesus called us to do.
Yeah, I agree. And, hats off to Jack and Tammy. I mean, here God brings a Protestant evangelist, a legitimate minister who's been ministering for years. And he's becoming a Catholic. He's praying the rosary. He's reading the catechism. And then he's bringing that element of Protestantism, that reaching out to the cold market that Protestants are great at. And he's bringing that aspect into this Flame Keepers group. And he's embracing wholeheartedly. He's going to RCIA, yet he's not setting his calling from God aside. He's doing them both. He's saying, okay, so I'm Catholic, and I'm learning what it means to be Catholic, and I'm being enriched by the Mother Church, and I'm learning all this amazing stuff that I didn't get taught in my Protestant roots, but Jack and his wife Tammy are still stewarding their calling from God and setting up this evangelistic outreach. So now Flame Keepers is not just cradle Catholics who don't have cold market people who are non-Christians coming. Flame Keepers has just expanded, is what I'm trying to say. Flame Keepers now has an outreach that is reaching people who don't know Christ at all.
And what I love about that is it's a microcosm of another person in Flame Keepers. We're tapping into their talent.
Purpose, revival of purpose.
It's a revival of purpose.
Yeah, you've got Jose there on the bass. You've got Mackenzie getting to play and be included in what we're doing. We've got Tammy with hospitality and inviting folks from a previous Bible study that she was a part of. Everyone getting to operate. I love it. And we're all a part, if you think about it, of the great paradox. But Larry, what is the great paradox? Coming up next in a coming segment, Larry's going to finally share with us what is the great paradox. We'll be right back.